Good morning. Welcome to the Windsor Star News Cafe. I'm Don McArthur here with Dylan Kristy and Windsor Mayor Eddie Francis.
Good morning.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Sorry for those audio difficulties we had last week.
The Windsor
entirely my fault.
The Windsor Star censoring.
Whoa, don't
precisely,
start any rumors there.
They're cutting off my mic, Joe.
Exactly. Boom, though, it was I'm almost glad we missed it because we get a chance to talk about Premier Aviation again after Friday when I'm not entirely sure what happened, but John Milson has a press conference at the airport saying, I don't believe there's 200 jobs there. You catch wind of this. You start emailing reporters saying, I'm going to go crash his press conference. Gave us all sort of an impromptu tour of Premier. So, I mean, why react so strenuously?
Well, because I think in this election it's important that we be very factual about what we're presenting, and not only the mayoral candidates but the council candidates. And you know, I've had this conversation with John Milson a couple of times now, and I've shared this with John and others. If you're going to run a campaign for mayor or council, I think it's great. If you're going to bring out issues and debate issues and disagree on issues, I think that's awesome. I think that level of discourse, that level of debate allows the constituents to make an informed decision in terms of what they choose for their next mayor or council, or what they choose in their next mayor and council. However, where I've made it very clear is that if it's going to be a campaign where it's a campaign of misinformation, or it's a campaign of attacking a record based on misinformed facts, then I believe I have a responsibility, and I've shown that I'm going to step out and make sure that the facts are correct. Just like you guys are doing fact-checking in the Windsor Star through Carolyn Thompson's articles, I think it's important for us to do the same thing. And I've shared that with John, I've shared it with other candidates. So this issue about Premier Aviation, and you know, I don't understand. So when John had his newser attacking the Premier, and you know, we've seen it over the course of the several years, I don't understand the fascination with attacking something that we're trying to attract to the city and build in the city, which is a part of diversifying the strategy. So I felt it was important to bring the reporters through and say, look at the level of work that's being done here. We have national airlines being serviced in the city of Windsor, where we have an industry that has employees that are working, trying to diversify the economy. So you can't be running for mayor or council, talk about wanting to create jobs, wanting to diversify the economy, and then in the same breath come out and say, well, there's nothing happening, when you don't know. So I thought it provides the opportunity to clarify the facts.
But here's the thing, you mentioned Carolyn Thompson. She wrote a great piece sort of in Saturday's paper about Premier Aviation, focusing specifically, I mean, Dilkins made this a campaign issue. He's the guy that stood out there and said, hey, they're looking to hire 200 people,
right,
and there's a skills gap. So Carolyn's lead in her story, are they looking to, you know, hire 200 people? And her answer, and she's a good reporter, it's still not clear.
I think...
and you read her story, it is still not clear.
I think it's fair to take on Dilkins and to really put Dilkins' feet to the fire when it comes to statements that he's made and to claims that he's made. So I don't take issue with that whatsoever. What I take issue with is to try to represent that, and John has said it before, well before this newser, he said it on this segment here, that we spent $22 million and there's nothing happening. That's where I take issue.
Sure, fair enough. There's 50 people there on contract from out of town.
No, there's more than 50. There's 100 employees that are hired there, plus an additional 50. And I'll let Premier speak to their numbers.
Sure.
So let me be very clear.
Yeah.
I have no issue with them taking on Dilkins as a candidate, attacking Dilkins on statements that he's made. Okay. That's fair ball. Where I take issue with is statements that have been made trying to paint a picture that the council spent $22 million and there's nothing happening in that facility. The fact of the matter is that we made a very strategic decision and a very deliberate decision in terms of the need to diversify our economy. We identified a segment of the economy that we did not have represented in the city of Windsor in our economic base, and that's the maintenance, repair, and overhaul of airplanes. We looked at the fact that there's an opportunity here to attract a new employer to the city. We reached out to airlines, we had conversations with airlines, we had conversations with industry people. We said to them, who is the best? And they all pointed to the fact that Premier Aviation is the best. We sat down, we had discussions with Premier Aviation, a company located in Quebec, a company until that point in time was strongly rooted in Trois-Rivières, And we said to them, we'd like to develop this industry. We need to diversify our economic base. We need to be more than automotive. We have these skilled workers that know automotive. We want to transition those that are unemployed into a new industry. How do we do that? And those conversations led to us building the facility, attracting Premier Aviation. And when Premier Aviation came to the city, it's the largest facility west of Toronto. There is no other maintenance, repair, overhaul facility of this size or magnitude west of Toronto. But more importantly, guys, it's a new industry in the city of Windsor, so it's part of economic base. But when it first came here, because it was so new, right, they started off with the Dash 8s. We had Windsor Star reporters in there. They started off with the smaller planes. They developed the skill set, shuttling back and forth between Windsor and Trois-Rivières, building up that skill set. Then they went into the larger planes, the narrow bodies. They developed that skill set. And now they're into the point, and they went from one line to two lines in terms of planes available. Now we have 2 planes in that facility that are 737s and the new generation planes, not Dash 8 smaller planes. They're, according to Premier on Friday, and I believe them and I've seen the numbers, they have 100 employees. What you saw in Carolyn Thompson's story is that you have employees that are some Windsorites that have come back, some Windsorites that have found new jobs, some people that have relocated from other areas, bought their homes here. There was one particular gentleman that did the interview that relocated from
there's an awful lot staying in hotels, going home on weekends, but there is. Let's just be clear. And you were shadowing Caroline when she was interviewing these people, like elbowing guys, saying, "Hey, don't you live in Windsor? Doesn't your family like it here in Windsor?" Why are you taking such a personal sort of interest in this? If this deal is so good, shouldn't it be able to speak for itself?
Because it does speak for itself. And the reason that I brought the Windsor Star and other media outlets in there is because you need to know what's really happening there. There are 100 individuals that are working there, and there's nothing wrong. I met these employees for the first time with Carolyn. I'm not there every single day. And what I thought was important was to find out where these people are coming from, right? I don't know what their answers are going to be, right? I didn't have a chance to sit down and say, by the way, if you were asked this, what would you say?
But the impression I was left with, you were really trying to steer them to give the right answers.
How can I steer them if I don't know what their answers are? I wanted to know.
By letting the reporter do their job without hovering.
Well, with respect, then the reporter could have asked me to leave. The reporter was there because I brought the reporter there, Don. If I had something to hide, do you think I would have brought the reporters in? Number one. If I had something to hide, don't you think I would have staged it so that, that we knew what the answers were going to be? That's not the case. But my inquiries are similar to the inquiries that you would have, similar to the inquiries that Carolyn would have. Where are you from? Where are you from? Right. How'd you end up in Windsor? And you know what we heard? We heard people that were living in Winnipeg have now come here, bought property here, and live here. We've heard of people that used to live in Toronto, relocate their families here. We heard of people that were in Trois-Rivières and now living here. We have 100 plus employees plus 50. Having said all that, okay? So here's a question to you, to Dylan, and the same question I put to everybody else. How do you diversify an economy, gentlemen? How do you diversify an economy? Do we chase employers away?
Well, no, listen, you guys have been very clear from the beginning that it's like 300 jobs over 7 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
You did not create sort of false expectation. This is going to take time. We're diversifying the economy. Boom, boom, boom. But back to the issue at hand. You hold Dilkin's feet to the fire then. You said people have an obligation to do it. He stood out there and said, tomorrow we could hire 200 people. Well, I mean, but supply and demand, if you're paying $20 an hour and you can't hire 200 people, then jack it up to 30, you get your 200 overnight. So clearly there's 200 people in the world that are qualified to do this job. If there are 200, why aren't we filling these vacancies if they're there? That's what I don't understand.
That's the issue, my friend. That's the issue. And you hit the nail on the head. Premier Aviation has made it very clear. It is a supply and demand issue. But the supply and demand issue is not the fact that we don't have enough airplanes coming into this facility. And Premier Aviation has basically said we can get these planes into this facility. The supply, so the demand is there, right? The supply issue is having the skilled workers because, like I've often said, we're not baking bread here, right? This is a sophisticated industry. You need a special skill set, and you need to be able to come in, work on planes at different levels of degree of experience. So the apprentices can work on the planes, but you need the seniority and another level of experience to actually sign off on that work of the plane. So there's different levels of degree. So where you hit the nail on the head, it's not an hourly wage issue, it's not a payment issue, but it's an issue of, and I thought one of the employees articulated it very well, that's been in the industry for some time now. It's an issue of getting people to locate to the city, to be able to leave their families, to leave the base. The central areas for aerospace, the central area for maintenance, repair, overhaul, have traditionally been in established areas. in the Quebec region, in the Montreal region, in the Greater Toronto region, out east in the Atlantic provinces, as well as in Winnipeg and other areas. That's where the industry is. So if you were to pick up and move and take the automotive industry and take a Chrysler and Ford, for example, and try to locate it, even in a capital that has low unemployment like Regina, you're going to struggle to find skilled enough workers to fill that demand because it's a new industry to that area, right? So for people to relocate to an area that they're not used to, it takes time. And that's what we have here. We have a new industry that is located in an area that does not and has not had the benefit of that industry. So it's going to take time. The recruitment issue is not a cost or dollar issue in terms of a per wage cost, because we heard from employees as well that it's typical of what they pay in the industry. The relocation issue and the finding the thing is the availability of the skilled. Plus,
yeah, but this is what the supply and demand thing is. In the beginning, given all of these things working against us, we're going to have to pay more to get them here. We're going to have to give them incentives instead of maybe letting Premier pay $1 a year on an $18 million hangar that the city paid for. Maybe we should set up $1 million to help get these people who are working in Quebec, working in BC, that have the training to get them here if there are 200 jobs that can be filled tomorrow. Are there 200 jobs that can be filled tomorrow?
And there are, according to them, there are. And
okay, so was Dilkins right? Or
yes, Dilkins was correct in saying that. But
so shouldn't the city be more focused on, not 8 years down the road, on getting those 200 people to move to Windsor tomorrow? How?
We are, and let me tell you how. Because those programs do exist at the provincial level, and the province has been very helpful in a number of training programs.
Not helpful enough if there's 200 vacancies.
We have, because we have a wonderful opportunity to grow the business, right, and to help an employer.
But we can have 200 people living in Windsor, paying mortgages, eating in our restaurants tomorrow.
Yes, and that's an argument that I've made to the province, and the province has been very helpful, and the province has come to the plate, not only with Premier Aviation, with CS Wind, with Valiant, with others, and we've had this conversation. There's a proposal that's in front of the province right now where Premier Aviation wants to establish themselves as the curriculum provider, as the training provider for these employees. But that takes a level of funding that help and support from provincial training dollars.
Valiant does this, right? When you're talking about
does that, and CS Wind does it. You know, I just did the show with the Premier the other day, and on a competitor station, but she talked about the example that I've used many times with her in terms of CS Wind and the welders, right? So these are not new dollars, these are existing dollars where the province has helped CS Wind, they've helped Premier, they've helped others with training. And what we need to do is basically work with the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade, with Minister Duguid, with the Premier and others, in terms of refining the training opportunities to do that job, right? But again, it's not something that's just unique to Premier, it's unique to employers that have tremendous opportunity for explosive growth, but that the traditional training route, i.e. vis-a-vis the university or college, does not meet what they need, and what they need are people on the shop floor, being trained on the shop floor, you know, for a couple days a week, classroom upstairs for a couple days a week, and back on the shop floor for the remaining period. Those are training things, right? But again, it takes time. But the province has been very helpful, and the only thing I'll say is, you know, that's how we went from Dash 8 to 737s. The first criticism against Premier was, oh, there are only small planes in there. The criticism now is, you know, so you went from small planes to big planes, and they're not the same in terms of complexity. They're obviously, you know this, right? Mm-hmm. So it takes a gradual progression, and as we've always said, it's going to take time to build and to get there. But training is key. But training is not only key to Premier, it's key to many employers. And you know, one part I do agree with the Dilkins platform is the fact that jurisdictions that are competing, there is a real need to recognize that at the national level and in North America, there is a skills gap. And the jurisdictions that are going to be very aggressive in developing programs that closes that skills gaps or addresses those skills issues will be jurisdictions that will be able to attract employers. Whether it's something as sophisticated as advanced manufacturing or maintenance, repair, or overhaul, or something as less complicated but more customer-driven in terms of call centers with HGS, right? So those areas in terms of economic development and trade are going to need a real comprehensive skills strategy, which does not mirror itself or does not replicate the traditional skills development program, which has been basically isolated to universities, colleges, and other already established programs.
Excellent.
Okay, I think we kicked this one to death. I don't know what else to say. I still struggle with the notion that there's 200 job vacancies and we just stone cold can't fill them.
Couldn't you have said
6% unemployment across the country? Like 5 billion, 6 billion people in the world, and we can't find 200 people to work in Windsor?
But you could have said at the beginning, too, that there's the possibility of 200 jobs right at the start. Just like if you had the trained workers, you could have it. When they opened, they could have had 200 workers come in and do that. But it's just a matter of getting the people and training them.
It's a new industry,
exactly,
and it takes time to train, right?
Okay. All right. Well,
but Don,
yeah.
your last comment is appropriate, and that is the issue in companies all over North America. But that is your last comment underscored my point that I was trying to make, but you articulated probably in better terms that there are jobs out there. And I just talked to the Premier about this yesterday. There are jobs out there. We know there are jobs out there. The biggest issue is skills training, skills upgrading, and the level of support that is available at the federal and provincial level to assist employers to make those level of investments so that we can fill those positions. It's weird. I get it. It's a weird concept. You've got unemployment and you've got all these potential jobs. Find the solution to do it. It's a skills issue, though.
Okay. Windsor Mayor Eddie Francis on Premier Aviation. We're in the Windsor Star News Cafe.